Welcome back to Sooner Politics Weekend Report. I'm David Vann with Page 5, and this is our closing point on our two banana republics. What do you mean by that? I'll tell you what I mean. You see, our Constitution allows for our two legislative bodies, the House of Representatives and the House of the Senate, to set up their own rules by which they do business. And on one level, that seems realistic. They are the ones that have to get work done, and they should be able to set some rules that allow them to work orderly. You would think. But the other night, I had the opportunity to have dinner with some former legislators, in one who's currently serving as a chairman of a House committee. And we talked about the whole process. And folks, I couldn't be more embarrassed and disgusted with our legislative leadership. They get so juvenile. They are so junior high. There are chairmen of committees who will not hear a bill just because of who authored it, and they're mad at them about something. And I'm telling you, folks, that's more the rule than the exception to the rule. Deals are offered. Favors are given. Some of them we know about, some we don't know. Sometimes things are done very immorally. Sometimes favors that sell out the voters of Oklahoma. You see, it's up to each House Senate, House of the Representatives, to elect a leader. But Greg Treat here, the furthest from me, he just got the Senate to change his rules. And if you listen to Senator Dom, he would argue that he doesn't think they actually did it in a constitutional manner. He believes they actually violated the Senate rules, existing Senate rules, in order to make Greg Treat more powerful. The Senate used to vote for many of their leaders and their chairman of their different committees. Now, it's pretty much these two guys pick all the committee chairs. Here's what's wrong with that. The committee chairs are dictators. Yes, I said that, dictators. They have sole power to decide whether a bill gets heard or not. And the only one who can override that is one of these two men who govern their chambers, the Senate or the House. Many of the worst things that come out of the legislature, or don't even get a hearing in the legislature, are because these two men are dictators of banana republics known as our two legislative bodies. They act very much like a dictator of a banana republic in that they are essentially a one-man rule. They set the law. Now, there have been some good people in the past, and I particularly want to commend T.W. Shannon. About 5 years ago, he was the Speaker of the House, and he enacted some reforms. Some of those reforms allowed the House to bring bills up for a floor vote, even though he really didn't want them. As soon as he left to run for the U.S. Senate, Jeff Hickman became the next speaker and reversed all those things. Hickman only served 2 years, and then he left. And then Charles McCall came next. Now, McCall is probably wealthier than everybody else in the legislature combined. He spread his money around, and he got a number of people elected, paid off enough money to enough people in campaign contributions that they voted for him. Many of them regret deeply that they did. Charles is not the brightest bulb. He's not. There are some very intelligent people in leadership. There are some very credible people in leadership. Yes, they're politicians. Here's our solution. I'm looking for a state question. I'm looking for an initiative petition, because believe me, a constitutional amendment that would fix these things, or at least rein in some of the ridiculous things, is not going to come from either of these men, or likely from any one of their successors. I'd like to ask our former legislators to begin writing a reasonable state amendment to our Constitution that sets certain perimeters. No, I don't mean that our Constitution is going to tell these two legislative bodies how they operate. We're not going to dictate their rules. That would be ridiculous. But at least we're going to adhere to certain principles. Principles that allow for a bill to at least get a hearing in committee, even when the dictator, known as the chairman, disagrees with it. We've got to have some of these things put in place. So I want to leave that with you. If you've got a legislator that, or former legislator especially, talk it over with them. See what we can do. We've got to make for a better political system in Oklahoma. Now, I'm not just picking on the Republicans in this, because for nearly 100 years, the Democrats had dictatorial powers, and they were as bad and worse. The sad thing for me is Republicans don't appear to be any better. I'm David Van. Thank you for watching Sooner Politics Weekend Report. We'll look forward to seeing you next week around the Capitol or on the web. Thanks for being a part of Sooner Politics. Have a good night.